it's in you.
In me, yeah, yeah.
So strong.
Greetings, welcome, and thank you. We made it to the finish line, everyone. Congratulations on a successful national training. Woo! On behalf of our President Emerita and founder, Mrs. Marian Wright Edelman, our President and CEO, Reverend Dr. Starsky Wilson, and VP of Strategy and Programs, Cherry Brady, I bring you greetings and welcome. What a delight to be in community with all of you, in person here at Haley Farm and virtually across the country for our annual Ella Baker Child Policy Training Institute, June training for site coordinators and servant leader interns. Thank you for your continuous engagement, and thank you for answering the call. I first must acknowledge our incredible Children's Defense Fund Freedom Schools national staff. Erica Fields, Data Systems Manager. Joy Masha, Local Program Supervisor. Keely Norris, Director of Training Initiatives. Janet Canada, Budget Manager. Dr. Yoon Jung Park, Director of Research and Analysis. Mary Fennell, Senior Program Operations Associate. Sierra Mackey Hall, Program and Outreach Manager. Shaquita Pegee, Senior Program Associate, then Director of Ella Baker Leadership. Robin Sally, Director of Curriculum and Programming. Kendra Nickel, Program Outreach and Engagement Associate. Eliana Rodriguez, Administrative Assistant. Dr. Lauren Lefty, ACLS Postdoctoral Fellow. And all of the wonderful Ella Baker trainers and CDF training consultants. And finally, our incredible interns, Georgia, Alexandra, and Whistleen. Give it up for all of the national staff that helped you have an amazing national training. Woo! We always say CDF Freedom Schools is a summer of service, lifetime commitment. Those words ring true to me today. This weekend has brought back so many good memories of my first time on the farm as a servant leader intern. When I first came to Haley Farm, I heard Reverend Joan Parrott read The Eagle Who Thought He Was a Chicken. Now we are hearing from amazing guest readers like Tamala Gresham reading Derek Barnes' Crown. I was inspired by scholars like Dr. Greg Carr, who encouraged me to think about how my work speaks to the after. And now you get to hear from scholars like Dr. Robert Harvey. No matter the year you served or the capacities in which you served, CDF Freedom Schools is a part of your life, and you are a part of ours. It is an honor and a privilege to serve as your national director, and I would not be here had it not been for my experience, inspiration, and engagement as a servant leader intern. So thank you for your hard work and dedication to this movement towards creating a nation where marginalized children flourish, leaders prioritize their well-being, and communities wield the power to ensure they thrive. Now, without further ado, I'd like to announce and introduce our graduation speaker. Okay, y'all, give it up now, give it up. Woo! Dr. Robert S. Harvey is an educator, minister, community connector, people strategist, and school system leader pursuing a vision of justice, equity, and love. He is the president of Food Corps, a national organization committed to ensuring that all of our nation's children have access to nourishing foods in schools at the intersection of community building, racial and economic justice. He also holds a visiting professorship in the practice of public leadership. Prior to Food Corps, he served as superintendent of East Harlem Scholars Academy, a community-based network of public charter schools, and chief academic officer of ETHP in New York City. Before that, Dr. Harvey served as chief operating officer of Simmons College of Kentucky, a historically black college in Louisville, and as an elementary school leader in Memphis. Committing his life to learning, he holds a doctorate in leadership, culture, and society from Memphis Theological Seminary, a Master of Theological Studies from Harvard University, and a Bachelor of Arts from Bryant University. His written work has appeared in Educational Post, Citizen Education, The Griot, Ed Week, Blavity, Chalkbeat, Education Drive, St. Louis Post-Dispatch, and multiple academic journals and publications focused on race, pedagogy, and the intersectional social identity, justice for the global and equitable and inclusive communities. He is also the author of Abolitionist Leadership in School, undoing systemic injustice through communal counseling, consciousness education. He is a Pahara Institute Fellow and serves as chair of the current project board of directors, is a member of the National Black Theater Board of Directors and the Black Church Center for Equity and Justice Board of Directors, and is a member of Manhattan Community Board 11. Y'all give it up for Dr. Robert S. Harvey. Thank you. Thank you, Dr.
Good afternoon, everybody, and such a pleasure to be with you all. It is a signal honor to be with the Children's Defense Fund and to be more specifically with the Ella Baker Child Policy Institute National Training, both those of you all who are in this sacred space and those of you virtually who are joining us from the comfort of your own sacredness for this graduation moment. I want to pause and celebrate the president and CEO of this phenomenal work, a dear friend and mentor of mine, the Reverend Dr. Starsky Wilson. Can we celebrate him again? And I also want to celebrate and thank Dr. Crystal Moore-Clemens and Keely Norris, two people who I believe are the embodiments of this justice work, for their invitation and for their administrative prowess. So can we also celebrate those two folks? Well, it is Sunday, which means that I'm grounded in a call and response tradition, and so I don't plan to talk to myself this afternoon, all right? And so we're gonna have a good time together. Long before children had access to the broadcasting genius of Nickelodeon and the Cartoon Network, Disney, Disney Junior, Sprout, ABC Kids, Netflix, Squid Games, Cocomelon, Amazon Prime, Dora the Explorer, Doc McStuffin, there were only 3 primary programming options for young people in this country. Mr. Rogers' Neighborhood, The Electric Company, and my personal favorite, Sesame Street. Yeah, first aired in 1969, it worked its way into gaining the most notable spot because of the words of that chorus. I expect for you to sing along with me, that sunny days, sweeping all the clouds away, on my way to where the air is sweet. Can you tell me how to get to Sesame Street? Growing up, I can fondly remember sitting in the kitchen at the counter while my mother made breakfast, and I was wearing pajamas full of colors and characters, because in my mind, Big Bird was indeed my best friend. But it was not until I got older, Keely, that I paused and I had a problem with something. Oscar the Grouch was still living in the same trash can that I had found Oscar the Grouch in 30 plus years ago. And the reason that it bothered me is because nobody ever took time to explain to me how Oscar got in the trash can in the first place. And yet here was Oscar in this trash can, Shaquita, and we called Oscar a grouch, as to assume that they were grouchy for no reason. But if you spent 51 seasons, year after year, song after song in Oscar's situation, you'd be a grouch too. It bothers me that nobody ever stopped to ask if Oscar was a grouch, because maybe he was the victim of a white supremacy culture that socially and economically and culturally marginalized him on the fact that he was green. Maybe Oscar was a grouch because he was abandoned by absentee parenting that failed to live into the maturity of not knowing how to show up when life got rough. Maybe Oscar was a grouch because he was evicted from public housing with expanding gentrification in places like Harlem and Brooklyn and Atlanta and Oakland, and Oscar only had a trash can because it was the only thing his money could afford. Maybe Oscar was a grouch because he was labeled by his local school district as needing a behavioral plan and the over-policing of his body when really all he needed was SEL learning and inclusive services. Maybe he was a grouch because Oscar spent his formative years navigating a spiritual community that was steeped in homophobia and transphobia, and Oscar was just trying to figure out, who am I in a place of people who don't know what it means to accept me? Maybe Oscar was a grouch, Dr. Clemens, because Oscar has spent 4 years watching the incompetent, narcissistic, and failed capitalist government led by a white man with orangish hair lead us into a deeper hell than we were already in. And that's why it frustrates me that we call Oscar a grouch. Because how would you feel if people who claim to be committed to you, claim to be committed to your humanity and your possibility, didn't mind singing with you towards sunny days, didn't mind dancing with you to where the clouds could go away, didn't mind spending time with you where the air is sweet, but nobody ever stopped to ask, do you want to get out of your trash can? It is indeed the reason why that when I think about folks like Oscar, I think about the fact that when you are living in that kind of situation, you need folks like all of us sitting in this room doing one thing, and therein lies my subject for this brief graduation moment. You need people like us to go and grab a towel. It was Alan Moore who penned the words that our memories are so treacherous. For one moment you are lost in delight, but the next moment your memory can lead you somewhere you don't want to go, filled with the deep ambiguous shapes of things you had forgotten. And when you find yourself locked in the unpleasant train of your memories, heading for the places where the screaming is unbearable, remember, Alan Moore says, you can always choose to be a grouch, because grouchiness is sometimes what he calls life's emergency exit. And that says to me that on this graduation day, as you all prepare to go and walk your walk and talk your talk as site coordinators and servant leader interns, we need a group of people who have a radical sense of humanity for the grouchiness born of people's memories, for the grouchiness born of intersectional injustice, for the grouchiness born of people's poverties. And can I help you? We need a group of site coordinators and servant leader interns who also have humanity for the grouchiness that lives within all of us. Yeah, there are far too many of us in the grand scheme of this graduating moment who have to be honest that many of us sitting in this sacred place that some might even call sanctuary, if we were to be honest and we caught you on your worst day, there is even some grouchiness in you. And the problem with far too many of us in our activism, in our scholarship, and even in our servant leadership is that we have a tendency to critique the Oscars in our lives. We throw our Oscars away. We step over them, and we even suspend them, but we've never created the conditions in order to move them from where they are to where they can be. That is to say, that Keely, sometimes we intellectualize, strategize, theologize, and philosophize why Oscar is in the place that they're in, because all of that doesn't require us to deconstruct our power or to probe our privilege. But when you stop trying to intellectualize how somebody got into a place and you begin to focus on how to get them out of that place, it requires you to move from a get me free to a get us free ethic. Yeah, that's because grounded in the grand scheme of the moral act of the universe, Oscars in America, black ones and brown ones, indigenous ones and rural ones, unhoused ones and underpaid ones, queer ones and trans ones, gender oppressed ones and medically marginalized ones. All of our Oscars need folks like you and me who leave spaces like Haley Farm, conquer our self-centeredness, and create a world of other-centeredness where we is greater than me and our transcends my. That is why Martin King said in 1957, given at Dexter Avenue in Montgomery, the thump that is the baseline of today's soundtrack, he says, an individual cannot rise above the narrow horizons of their individualistic concerns until they have learned that they are the victims of self-centeredness and need a new view of what it means to serve the other. And I wonder if there's anybody here that can also testify that you walk and share your life. It is Sunday. That walk and you tell your life that I'm trying to conquer a kind of inner self-centeredness in order to care for the young people, care for the families, care for the caregivers, care for the people in my community. And it can be hard sometimes, though, to conquer self-centeredness. Yeah, when you live in a distorted reality, watching newsreel on top of newsreel of death and destruction, like in Uvalde and Buffalo, like in Flint and in St. Louis last night, in Philadelphia or in Chicago, it can be hard to find yourself in these gloomy times able to imagine a world otherwise. It can be hard, Dr. Clemens, to imagine a community otherwise, a school otherwise, an America otherwise, a otherwiseness that Dr. Ashan Crawley says, where we free ourselves from the dominating oppression of cliches like, does this serve me, in order to create the democratic hope of, does this liberate us? In these gloomy times, it is easy to find yourselves leaning into a is this about me kind of ethic. But I was hoping I could find at least 5 people on Haley Farm who are in a position where you are trying to transition your justice work from a does this serve me to does this lift us, from a does this serve what I need to does this serve what we need. Because in these gloomy times, it is easy to find ourselves unable to see an embodiment within this democratic experiment of what we can do to free Oscar. But let me help you. Democratic hope that frees Oscar is a kind of hope where you can lean into the realities of what is at your fingertips. When I pause and listen to somebody like Ms. Meekins leading and guiding a model back, it's stuff like integrated reading and a model back, and youth organizing and collective action, family engagement and a clear objective, making sure you have an opening and a welcoming environment, making sure that you have cross-cultural engagement and that your objective matches your activity and your activity finds a close. It is that kind of work that frees an Oscar. And so if you can sing, let's go to Sesame Street. Children don't just need singing, but they need singing and they need sophistication. They just don't need dancing, but they need dancing and rigor. They need excellence and enjoyment. And I wonder, is there anybody here on Haley Farm that can testify? That's all I'm trying to do. I'm trying to free Oscars by teaching children how not just to shoot, but to shoot and read. How not just to swag, but to swag and internalize. I'm trying to help children be freed from the trashy conditions of an America that wants to keep them in the trash. I just believe that if we had spent Oscar's situation for 51 situations, and Oscar was here at Haley Farm and we interviewed him, I believe Oscar would borrow words from Langston Hughes and he would say, Robert, life for me ain't been no crystal. Said he then slapped high fives with Maya and he say it's like a bruising darkness. Having lain too long, Maya would pass the mic to Baldwin. Baldwin would say, I'm living in a strange house with a strange man in a strange town. Baldwin would then bring me up to the 90s, give it over to Grandmaster Flash, and Oscar would say, bruh, it's like a jungle sometimes. It makes me wonder how I keep from going under. And if I had a moment with Oscar, I would tell Oscar, I feel you, bruh. Because when you are black and brown in a white man's America against the 3 evils of racism, capitalism, and militarism, it can often be hard to navigate this jungle that we call the American complex. I bet if you had a chance to get the mic with Oscar, you could tell your own trashy story of what it means to be caught up in the complex of a white American capitalism that sees your body as a commodity but does not see your mind for the genius that it holds. And that's why, as I prepare to take my left turn, because he told me 20 minutes, as I prepare to take my left turn, it is interesting to me that we need people like you who don't want to be served by crowns, but you want to serve by grabbing your towel. Yeah, it is there where we need people, Dr. Clemens, who know what it means to grab a towel. And you're looking, probably wondering, where is this towel thing coming from? But because I have to be true to who I am, I have to be true to who I am. And the reason I'm so driven by a kind of Ella Baker ethic that is driven by a towel, because what comes to mind for me, Shaquita, is a first century black Middle Eastern Jewish carpenter. And when I think about that first century black Middle Eastern Jewish carpenter who was unafraid and undaunted, it was in the darkest night of that first century black Middle Eastern Jewish carpenter that he did not grab a crown, but he went down on his knee and he grabbed a towel. It was in the darkest season of his life when he was about 126 hours from being murdered by the state that this first century black Middle Eastern Jewish carpenter did not grab a crown, but grabbed a towel. You're looking, trying to figure out who is this first century black Middle Eastern Jewish carpenter born and raised in Palestine, on the run from the state as a refugee with a 13-year-old black mama and a daddy that didn't want him in the first place, but ultimately had to have him. By the way, name is Jesus. Yeah, it was this first century black Middle Eastern Jewish carpenter who was raised by a refugee mama and a daddy that was his stepdaddy who didn't want him until he was compelled to take advantage of his personality. It was that man who grabbed a towel in the darkest night of his soul when he was surrounded by a community that did not want to keep him. He steeped down on his knees to grab a towel. And what that tells to me is that you can measure a lot about somebody by what they grab in the darkest night of their soul. Because in the darkest night of their soul, some of y'all reach for power, and some of us reach for money, and some of us go after opulence. Some of us want to be an influencer. Some of us think we can get views, and some of us are chasing good vibes. But when you are committed to justice work, you don't chase all of that in the dark night. In the dark night of your soul, you go and you chase yourself a towel, because somewhere between a rock and a hard place, between a world that is and a world that can be, between enslavement and freedom, there are some young people in our communities like Winston-Salem and Greenville and Leland and Jackson who are expecting some Ella Baker trainers and some servant leader interns to get back home with a towel in their hand. I wonder, have you grabbed your towel yet? You might be looking, asking yourself, Dr. Harvey, what good can a towel do in justice work? Well, let me prepare to leave here. But when Ella Baker socialized the concept of participatory democracy, guiding people to become the agents of their own work, she might not have been in her bag, but she found her towel. When Septima Clark developed citizenship literacy schools, driving black folks to access the right to vote, she found her towel. When Fannie Lou Hamer stood before the Democratic National Convention and sang the song I'm still singing every other day, I'm sick and tired of being sick and tired, Fannie Lou found her towel. When the black queer activist Bayard Rustin organized Freedom Riders for 7 months and 6 days to ride the interstate down south, Bayard didn't make no money, but he found. Y'all got it already. When James sat down with a pen and parchment to write the 1953 Go Tell It on the Mountain, James found his towel. Let me come up a little bit. When Tarana Burke decided, I'm going to take the agency of the pain on my body and create the global hashtag #MeToo movement, Tarana found her towel. Yeah. When Laverne Cox said, I'm going to go from being bullied in my childhood to being the embodiment of trans justice, she found her towel. Well, let me help you. When Dr. Clemens decided she was going to morph her commitments from higher education to national training in CDF, Dr. Clemens, I got to tell you, sis, you might not be getting the bag, but you found your towel. Therein lies that the answer to the question of justice is that a towel is not just a good, but it is literally the only good you need when you are trying to transform a community for young people. Why? And here's where I leave you. Because a towel is a sign of hospitality. When I think about the Akan people and my recent visit some years ago to Senegal, the first time I walked in everybody's house, I was required to take my shoes off, sit down, and have my feet washed with a towel. I asked on the last time, why are you washing my feet? And this one thing blessed me. It said, because I'm trying to make space for you. In other words, grabbing a towel is not about cleanliness. It's a sign of radical inclusion that you belong here. So when you go back to your communities, your grabbing a towel is a sign to black and brown children that they belong. But a towel is not just hospitality. A towel is is memory, because some of us are so caught up in where we are now that we forgot that there was a moment in our life where somebody grabbed a towel and washed our feet. And I wonder, can somebody be reminded on a Sunday that we call Pentecost that there was somebody in your life who had to get down and grab a towel, or you wouldn't be where you are right now. And a towel is not just hospitality. A towel is not just a memory, but a towel finally is a sign of belonging, because I am so intrigued by Ovid in the 9th century, where Ovid said, "Indutimus grata coro ex amore," which means I plan to become a new thing, but I'm only going to do it out of love. In other words, it was Ovid who taught us that the way you transform something from what it is to what it can be is you transform it by serving it, but you only serve it by love. But it's not just a cheap love, it's a costly love, because as my grandmother would say, you don't get to be where you are on cheap love. You get to be where you are because it costed something for somebody to love you. So that then just leaves the question, CDF, how do we leave the hallowed halls of Haley Farm in order to pursue the democratic possibility and a pathway of hope? How do we ensure that mamas and daddies and siblings and nibblings, lottie-dottie, and everybody has access to the pursuit of justice? How do we create space for our classrooms and our hallways, for our community rooms and our cafeterias, for our gyms and our streets to be prepared for young people to thrive? How do we get Oscar out of the trash can where he can sing and dance on his own with Big Bird and the rest of them? How do we ensure that black bodies remain sacred and they are not constantly murdered at the hand of a white state? How do we continue to ensure that queer folks feel included in the same way that straight folks do? How do we continue to create conditions for people to rise above the fray and pursue themselves? Well, it's simple. The next time you're faced with the question of whether or not you want a crown or you want a towel, I expect that when you graduate from here, you stop reaching for crowns, because you always wear that. Go get yourself a towel and think about what you can do with your Oscar. I'm out.
Woo! Thank you, Dr. Harvey. Wow, those were amazing words. When we asked Dr. Harvey to prepare a graduation speech on hope, I think we had no idea that he would also transport us all here to the farm, and it would feel like we were all here together, like we can't wait to get back to you next year. So thank you, Dr. Harvey. That was amazing. Just such a hopeful message as we prepare for the path ahead this summer and our CDF Freedom School sites. I just want to say thank you to all of you joining us online. The work you all have been doing as servant leader interns and site coordinators has been inspiring. On behalf of the CDF Freedom School staff, Ella Baker trainers, our consultants, we just want to say thank you. Thank you for your engagement, for your attention. Thank you for your thoughtfulness and your preparation. Thank you for your dedication and commitment to your communities and your scholars. We are so honored to do this work alongside of you and cannot wait to hear and see more from your sites this summer. Now I'd like to welcome my colleagues, Kendra Nickel and Erica Fields, to the stage to recognize our graduates of the Ella Baker Child Policy Training Institute National Training for Servant Leader Interns and Site Coordinators. When you see your sponsor organization, be sure to drop that site name and city and state in the chat and go ahead and give a recognition to yourselves. Let's get started.
Academia Cesar Chavez Charter School, Administration for Children's Services, American International Academy, Ashley Academy Freedom School, Beyond Housing, Bob Bernadette Center Incorporated, Bullock County School District, Cameron Community Ministries, Carolina Youth Development Center, CDF Freedom Schools of Licking County, Center for Leadership and Justice, Central Gulf Coast CDF Freedom Schools Incorporated, Children's Defense Fund, Claflin University, Communities in Schools of Cape Fear, Community Development for All People, Covenant United Methodist Church, Cross Community Incorporated, Crossroads School for Arts and Sciences, Davidson College Center for Civic Engagement, Deaconess Foundation, East Cleveland Neighborhood Center, Easter Hill United Methodist Church, Einstein's Playground, Emmaus House, Excel Academy for Higher Learning, FAMU College of Education Developmental Research School, First State Community Action Agency Incorporated, Forest City School District, Francis Burns United Methodist Church, Freedom School Partners, Freedom Village of Hope, Friendship Academy of the Arts, Grace United Methodist Church, Dayton, Guilford County Schools, Hopkins Public Schools.
Hype Freedom School Incorporated, Iglesia Cristiana Sin Fronteras, Independent School District 622, Indianapolis Freedom School Partnership, IUPUI School of Education and Liberal Arts Center for Africana Studies and Culture, Kimberly Park Elementary School, Koinonia Family Life, Koinonia of Columbia, LifeWise STL, Lincoln, Lit City, Lutheran Social Service of Minnesota, McRae Learning Center, Michigan United Methodist Conference, Minneapolis Public Schools, Montfort Heights United Methodist Church, Morning Star Missionary Baptist Church, Mother Liberty CME Church, Nashville Freedom School Partnership, National Center for Children and Families, Neighbors in Ministry, NIA Cultural Center, North Carolina A&T State University, Northern Light United Methodist Church and Eagle River United Methodist Camp, Omega Community Development Corporation, Partnership with Children Incorporated, Peacemakers Family Center Incorporated, Peacemakers of Rocky Mount, Peter Spencer Family Life Foundation,
Play on Purpose Incorporated, Providence Educational and Community Services, PUCC Konak Community Freedom School, Rise Corps, Red Hook Initiative, Resurrected Community Development Corporation, Reynolds School District, Robbinsdale Area Schools, Roberts Family Development Center, Rutgers University Newark Campus, St. Paul Public Schools, Shelfness, Science Museum of Minnesota, Shiloh Community Development Corporation, Southside Kingdom of Hope Incorporated, Springfield Urban League Incorporated, St. Luke Community Development Corporation, St. Philip's School and Community Center, Success in Challenges Incorporation, Sunnyside Freedom School Anthony's Plot, Tanager Place, Tennessee Tech University College of Education, the Alabama Department of Early Childhood Education, the Center for Family and Child Enrichment, the legacy of Dr. Josie R. Johnson Montessori, the Listening, the Riverside Church in the city of New York, the Y in Central Maryland, Third Baptist Foundation Incorporated, Turn Freedom School, Trinity United Methodist Church, UHM Properties, United Way of the Greater Dayton Area, University of Florida Collaborative for Equity in Education, University of Illinois at Urbana-Champaign, University of Virginia, Virginia State University, W.A. Perry Middle School, WABLOC Washington Building Leaders of Change, Wake Forest University, Welcome Table Incorporated, St. James Episcopal Church, White Bear Lake 624, Why Not Young Lives, Wiley College Freedom to Stream. And finally, we would also like to congratulate our TFA Black Educators Promise Fellows, especially those of you that are here in person with us, Krista Washington, Brent Chopie, and Dorian Swinger. Thank you to our inaugural class of the Teacher Training Track for CDF Freedom Schools. Congratulations to our graduates. Another round of applause. Now, I would like to welcome my colleagues, Joy Masha, and boss lady herself to the stage, Ms. Shaquita Pegues. Thank you.
Thanks so much, Keely, and congratulations again to all of our site coordinators and servant leader interns. We cannot conclude our training this week without recognizing the superstars, without recognizing those who carry the spirits of Ella Baker, without recognizing those who you have been with all week through Harambe, workshops, and especially the integrated reading curriculum. Who am I talking about? Say it with me. The Ella Baker trainers. Guys, they have been amazing this week. They have worked so hard and put in so much work behind the scenes, getting ready for you so that you can show up and show out for the scholars in your communities. Despite what they might think right now, they are not, especially those who are graduating, receiving something special that they might be looking for today. But trust and believe that when we get together for our closing celebration to round out our service year and welcome in our new brothers and sisters who will be serving as Ella Baker trainers, especially those of you who have talked about it in the chat, we expect those applications. That's when we'll get the big boy, if you know what I mean, okay? So we want to welcome them to the stage as we call their names to recognize them for all of their hard work this week and all that is still to come. So when I call, please join us. We'll start with Carmen White. Morgan James. Jasmine Pollard. Akeisha Mosley. Rashawn Meekins. Jeanette Jones. And these last three names are our graduating Ella Baker trainers. They will be joining the Ella Baker Trainer alumni pool and continuing their services in that realm. So you will certainly continue to see them and hear from them, but we appreciate them for being the leaders, true mentors, and big mamas on the team to our team of Ella Baker trainers. So without further ado, Marlisa Stalling. Kelsey Selman. And I don't know if we can get the screen going, but last but certainly not least, our dear sister who's holding it down in the virtual world, Christian Montgomery. Once again, y'all, thank you so very much. Big up to our Ella Baker trainers. Amazing, amazing job this week. We are so looking forward to you, servant leader interns, who are ready to take your leadership to the next level by joining us in this amazing group. Thank you so much for all of your hard work this week. Everybody, let's show up and show out for those babies this summer. Let's rock the Freedom Schools. If you will, join us in singing Ella's song, and we thank you again for joining us for national training.
Freedom cannot rest. We who believe in freedom cannot rest until it comes. We who believe in freedom cannot rest. We who believe in freedom cannot rest until it comes. Until the killing of black men, black mothers' sons, is as important as the killing of white men, white mothers' sons. We who believe in freedom cannot rest. We who believe in freedom cannot rest. That which touches me most is that I had a chance to work with people, passing on to others that which was passed on to me. We who believe in freedom cannot rest. Sing it with us, come on. We who believe in freedom cannot rest until it comes. To me, young people come first. They have the courage where we fail. And if I can but shed some light as they carry us through the gate, we who believe in freedom cannot rest. We who believe in freedom cannot rest until it comes. The older I get, the better I know that the secret of my going on is when the reins are in the hands of the young who dare to run against the storm. We who believe in freedom cannot rest. We who believe in freedom cannot rest until it comes. Not needing to clutch for power, not needing the light just to shine on me. I need to be one in the number as we stand against tyranny. We believe in freedom, cannot rest. We believe in freedom, cannot rest until they come. Struggling myself don't mean a whole lot. I've come to realize that teaching others to stand and fight is the only way our struggle survive. Oh, we who believe in freedom and not rest. Oh, we who believe in freedom cannot rest until they come. I'm a woman who speaks in a voice, and I must be heard. At times I can be quite difficult. I bow to no man's word. We who believe in freedom cannot rest. We who believe in freedom cannot rest until they come. Bum, bum, ba-dum, bum, bum, bum. Bum, 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 ba-dum, bum, bum, bum. Bum, 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 dum, ba-dum.
There it is.
It's a celebration. Celebrate good times, come on. Let's celebrate.